Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for today's head coach teleconference for the college football playoff quarterfinal at the Rose Bowl game presented by Prudential. I'm Karen Linhart, the Rose Bowl Games Marketing and Media Director. The Tournament of Roses is thrilled to host the Oregon Ducks and the Ohio State Buckeyes in this year's Rose Bowl game. Today's call will feature the head coaches from both participating teams. We'll start with Ohio State head coach Ryan Day for the first 20 minutes, and then Oregon head coach Dan Lanning for the final 20 minutes. Coach Day, I'd like to start by asking you to give a brief opening remark about playing in this year's game.
Yes, thanks, Karen. Very, very excited. Our team's very, very excited about this opportunity to play in the Rose Bowl. The tradition of the Rose Bowl in the Big Ten obviously is well documented, and we understand that. So actually be my third time being at the Rose Bowl, and every time we go, it's a great experience. And certainly have a great opponent in Oregon. A lot of respect for them. Looking forward to the rematch, and looking forward to a great week of preparation. I think when you think about some of the greatest venues there is in college football, certainly Pasadena and the Rose Bowl is right at the top of the list. So, certainly excited to get out there and be part of this great tradition once more.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the teleconference for questions. Please raise your hand to ask a question using the raise hand icon within Zoom. If and when your question is selected, we will unmute your microphone. Please state your name and media outlet before asking your question. Once your question has been answered, your microphone will be muted and your hand will be lowered. Doug, can you go ahead with the questions?
Sure. Our first question will be from Bill Rabinowitz.
Rabinowitz,
Thank you, Ryan.
you got it.
Um,
Bill.
Chip Kelly said after the game that Will Howard has gotten to the point that he doesn't even have to finish the play calls when he's calling them in to the helmet. Can you kind of address that? How important that is? How much an advantage it is to have a quarterback who's that in tune with the playbook and can kind of be that kind of guy, and just the way he's playing right now.
Yeah, our challenge to Will going into the last game was that, he had to be the best leader on the field. I thought he was. I thought he played well, got into a rhythm early on. But I think for Will, understanding exactly how we're trying to attack defenses is a critical part of being successful. And when the play caller and the quarterback are on the same page, like you said, that the minute they hear the formation, they can finish it. That means he's got a great grasp on what we're trying to get done. So it'll be important to put together another good game plan and then executing it on the field. I think that's what it comes down to. And Will, I know, is excited to have an opportunity to play Oregon again.
Our next
All right,
question, our next question will come from Joey Kaufman.
Hi, Ryan. You mentioned after the game that you guys had introduced some gap schemes that help with the run game, and wondering in what ways does that help with your offensive line and the ability to run the ball with some of the gap stuff.
Yeah, we look at every game and try to figure out how we best can maximize our strengths, minimize our deficiencies. And we felt going into the game that was the right thing to do. And we'll continue to look at that and see if that fits for this week. But I certainly thought we got good double teams on the inside guys. And I thought our pullers did a nice job of, on the defensive ends, and the second pullers getting to the next level. And I thought our running backs ran through contact well and ran with velocity. So it all plays in, and certainly when you have the weapons that we have on the outside, it certainly changes how defenses have to play, and so the numbers can equate better. But we're always looking for a balance, and so I think we found that on Saturday. But now we got to build on it. Nothing that we did on Saturday has anything to do with what's going to go on January 1st. So start from scratch again. Identify the things that we feel like give us an advantage. Put those plays in, practice them, and then work like heck to make sure that we can execute them against Oregon.
Our next question comes from Tim May.
Can't hear you, Tim.
Tim, can you unmute your microphone, please? Okay, Tim, we're going to move on to the next question. Next question will come from Nick Hamilton.
Hey, Coach Day, Nick Hamilton, Nightcast Media. Wanted to ask you, with all the wide receivers that have come through Ohio State, what do you and Coach Hairline feel that Jeremiah's most overlooked quality is?
Probably his size. He's when you get up on him, you realize how big he is and how big he plays, and that'll be something he'll have to do in this game as well, is play big, play strong, play powerful. And I think Brian has done a great job again this year with our receivers, and we're going to need them all in this game. Just like when we played them last time. So, but yeah, certainly everybody's involved with the pass game. In terms of the protection, Will making the throws, but creating separation and making plays is what's important. And our receivers have done that, and certainly Jeremiah's done that this year, and we'll need that again here on the first.
Our next question comes from Joe Reedy.
Hey, Ryan. Certainly plenty of interesting subplots with Chip used to coach at Oregon, plus coming back to the Rose Bowl. Just what's it been like having him on staff this year with you? And also, how have you kind of seen him evolve as an offensive play caller with your team?
Yeah, I think that he's now, a full season in, he's got an understanding of who we are, personnel wise, now, in the Big Ten, what that looked like. And so, yeah, to your point, it has evolved with, he's got a great understanding of the entire, game of football, offensive football, whether, it's wide open and spread and tempo, or getting with multiple tight ends in the game, huddling, different styles of play. And he's always said, and we've always said, that the number one job of the coordinator is to put the offense in the best position to be successful. And so that has to do with our personnel. It has to do with what we're seeing on defense. And now I feel like we had a good balance this past game, and so we'll look to do that as we put the game plan together for these guys.
Our next question comes from Spencer Holbrook.
Hey Ryan, with everything that you guys had to deal with after the Oregon game and the revenge or the rematch or whatever you want to call it, how do you guys know that this is also, for the playoff, balancing all of those different emotions that are going to come with this, seeing the Oregon guys on the sideline again after what happened in October? Like, what's the balance like there with the messaging for you guys heading into this?
It's about execution. It's about our preparation. It's about how we go about our meetings, how we go about our walkthroughs, how we go about our practices, so that when we get out to Pasadena, we're executing at a high level. And that's what it comes down to. Is it, super exciting? I guess not, but that's what it is. And our guys have played this team before, so there's a reference point. I think we're both teams are in different places than they were when we played last time. I think we're different, but still, the players are the same. And there's a lot to grab onto when you're watching film of somebody you've already played against. And sometimes when you are playing against a team maybe from another conference in the playoffs, there's a little bit of an unknown. How can you expect this guy to play? What am I really looking at when I look at the teams that they're playing? This team's not that way because we played them already and they played in the conference. So there's again a reference point as we move into this one. So our guys know what we're up against, but they also know that they've evolved and we've evolved. And so two very different teams heading into this game, and the team who prepares the best is going to win.
Our next question comes from Dan Hope.
Hey Ryan, you guys obviously had a lot of changes that you made on defense after that Oregon game. You've had a lot of success defensively since then, but this is the best passing offense that you've faced all year. How confident are you that those improvements that were made since then are real and will show through in this game?
Yeah, they do a great job on offense, throwing the ball, running the ball. They have a good balance. Gabriel's very, very talented and very accurate in what he does, and he's also very athletic. And they have weapons on the outside, so it's a challenge. We've seen that live and in color. So we've made adjustments coming off of that game, and we've worked hard to make sure that we're putting our guys in the best position to be successful. We'll do that again against these guys this week, and go compete our tails off. But our defense is playing with great confidence right now. You can feel that on the field on Saturday, and they've continued that build. After the game that we played with these guys last time, you can see every week it's gotten stronger and stronger. So, we got to go do it. We got to go put it on the field. But, I know we got a great challenge ahead, but our guys are ready for it.
Our next question comes from Pat Murphy.
Hey Ryan, you guys have obviously already gone through the film from that first game. How much of this preparation is looking back at that and what worked, what didn't? Or are you more focused on, we've seen that, let's look at what Oregon's done since we played them?
Yeah, a little bit of both. A little bit of both. But it's not like we played them just a couple weeks ago. This was mid-season, and there's been a lot of football played since then. So, like I said, I feel like we've evolved, they've evolved, different teams. So there are certainly things that you want to look at that happened in that game, but also as time's moved on, how they've changed, how we've changed, and then how does that fit, as we put together the game plan. But ultimately, we want to make sure that we're putting together a great game plan so our guys can play fast. They understand what we're trying to get done in terms of attacking in all three phases, and then they can play with emotion and physicality.
Our next question comes from Rob Aller.
Hey, Ryan, kind of along the same lines. It's rare for Ohio State to play the same team twice in one season. I think it's happened 7 times only in history. Do you feel a need, and kind of dipping into your NFL experience where you do play the same team, do you feel like you have to change things up, throw wrinkles in? Can you be just the same team you were? How does that work from a coaching standpoint when you're in those meetings of, we're just going to do what we do best? Or again, are there little wrinkles and just sort of differences?
Well, there's what we call overage too, especially on offense of things that we have coming out of a game that we didn't call. So you always want to reference those and see your notes and see things that we've already practiced this season that maybe we didn't use in that game. That plays into it. But then also things that we've done in the second half of the season that we feel like our players are comfortable with. And then what fits, their scheme as they've evolved this season on defense. Again, they're not just playing the same things that they've been playing all year. They've changed and, much more multiple in what they do. So you combine all those things together, and you put the game plan in, and then you throw some things out. You add some things that you think might fit. And, at the end of the day, you only got to pack what you need, though. And you got to make sure that it's clean and it's, a plan that the guys can go execute with a lot of confidence. So, I mean, that's what we're in the middle of right now.
Our next question comes from Ralph Russo.
Hey, Ryan, congratulations. I understand that essentially Ohio State is always going to try to recruit the best players in the country, and that's going to be the foundation of your roster. But you guys have had success in the portal. There's a lot more players in the portal than ever before. How much has that changed, if at all, your strategy, how you go about high school recruiting? Simply having another place where you can get very talented players.
Well, like you said, our foundation is recruiting high school players and then developing them and then retaining them. I think that when you're looking to sustain a program over a long period of time, that's the best plan for doing that. Guys understand that. I think when you look at, there's been a lot of talk about our team this year, a lot of talk about, the NIL conversation, but, the majority of this team are guys that decided to come back, not guys that decided to come to Ohio State. Certainly we did add some big pieces in the portal, and that was very important for our team. And those guys have been great members of our team and have quickly understood what it means to be Buckeyes. But in order to have that stability, I think that you've got to recruit high school players, tell them exactly what it's going to be, and then follow up and treat them exactly the way that you recruited them in the process. But along the way, you're going to have attrition. You're going to have guys who enter the portal. And because of that, you're going to have openings along the way, and then you have to fill those openings. And so, we're very careful to do that because we know that sustainability of the program ultimately is very, very important here at Ohio State. So, all things that were taken into consideration. There'll be certainly positions and needs that we have in this recruiting cycle that we need to address, and we will. But we also want to make sure that they fit our culture and who we are as a program.
We have time for 2 more questions. Our next question will come from Tim May.
Can you hear me now?
I got you, Tim.
Yeah, there you go, Ryan. Luke Montgomery, just the mix you had up there in the middle of that offense, did it go almost according to the way you would like to have gone? I mean, how pleased were you with that, and will you continue that, you think, going into this game? But you know what I'm saying? I mean, that had to work, and it did.
It had to work. You're right. And I thought that they all played well. I felt like, Justin, working the rotation in the way he did allowed them to play fast and then, get a little bit of relief getting off the field. And I think Luke ended up with maybe 30, 31 plays. Of those 30 and 31 plays, I thought he did a nice job. Every play wasn't perfect, but there were some really good plays in there, great effort. And I could feel his presence out there, which is a big part of the offensive line. Austin played very, very well. Tegra had some really good plays. So I think they all worked together there. Austin was sort of our swing man. We decided to do that going into it. Austin and Tegra have played against Oregon. So again, there's a reference point going into this game, but they'll need to play well. And, we know they have very good players inside and up front. So, they got to keep building on it. And so right now, as we come out of this game, I would say that that's going to continue the way that we did that. But we'll assess it as the week goes on and see what gives us the best chance to win the game.
Our final question will come from Adam King.
Coach, you talked a lot about using this game as a springboard, almost like, a wild card game in the NFL, giving your team momentum. Have you felt that in the last couple of days, like walking into that locker room, that this is a whole new vibe for this team, a whole new life getting ready for the next 3 games?
I think you could feel the confidence in the locker room. You could feel the confidence yesterday as we had our team meetings, identified the champions, watched the film from the game, showed clips of the game with the team, and then we broke up into position meetings and watched the film. Have to make some adjustments like we always do. The issues are always there, but there was just an overall bounce and confidence about the group coming off the game. To know that we already have a playoff win under our belt will give us confidence going into the game. And also knowing our opponent, I think also gives us confidence. So all of those things led to a great day yesterday. There's a lot of pep in everybody's step, and looking forward to a great week of preparation.
Thank you, Coach Day. With that final question, we will let you go. We appreciate your time, and you're now welcome to sign off.
All right, thanks, guys.
For the reporters on the call, we will be joined by Coach Lanning shortly, so please stay tuned. He will be joining us promptly at 9:20 a.m. Eastern.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
A reminder for the media, for those on today's call, we will have the video from today's call and transcripts available on the CFP portal shortly following this call. We are now joined by Oregon head coach Dan Lanning. Welcome, Coach Lanning. We appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for being here. Coach Lanning, we'd like to start by just asking you to give a brief opening remark about playing in this year's CFP quarterfinal at the Rose Bowl game presented by Prudential against Ohio State.
Yeah, it's something we're extremely excited about. Obviously, getting to play a great opponent in Ohio State. I think that's a great representation of what the Big Ten is capable of, having these two teams with the opportunity to face off and the granddaddy of them all. So we're super excited, our players, our staff, certainly myself, about getting this opportunity at the Rose Bowl.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the teleconference for questions. Please raise your hand to ask a question using the raise hand icon within Zoom. If and when your question is selected, we will unmute your microphone and state your name and your media outlet when asking a question. Our first question comes from Bill Rabinowitz.
Hi, Dan. Bill Rabinowitz from the Columbus Dispatch. When the bracket was announced and you're the number one seed, the only undefeated team, and you're facing potentially Ohio State in the quarterfinals, what kind of goes through your mind, and just kind of your thoughts on a rematch from a team that you've already beaten?
Yeah, super excited, right? Getting the opportunity to play great teams, that's what it's about. And this part of the year, I think when you play great teams, that gives you some extra motivation to go work really hard, to be prepared and ready to be out there on the field. So obviously Ohio State's a great team. And the path to the end is tough, which is, exciting for our team and certainly for me.
Our next question comes from Brandon Marcello.
Hey, Dan, Brandon Marcel, CBS Sports. I was wondering, obviously, any season's a long season, but this one could be especially so for you guys. And, I believe since 1894, we haven't seen a 16-0 college football program in the FBS. Obviously, I'm looking ahead there, but when you're going through this season, knowing how long a season can be for you, one, how difficult is it? And I guess battling that psychologically with your players, preparing them mentally for that, and of course, physically navigating this schedule?
Yeah, I think the real challenge in there has been for me to make sure that I'm keeping our players fresh and our team ready. But our guys are really up for the mental challenge. We've got a mature team. I've been really proud of the way they've prepped all season. And they've kind of attacked every single day and put a lot of trust in our coaching staff and our sports science department, strength staff, that we're going to have the right plan for them. I'm proud to say that like several of our players are hitting some of their highest testing numbers this year. We have guys hitting PRs in the weight room. And I think that's unique at this point in the season, but it speaks to how we've been able to adapt and adjust, some of our performance stuff throughout the year to make sure that we continue to stay fresh.
Our next question comes from Stephen Means.
Then more of a big picture question for you. Maybe this makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but this is your third year as a head coach. And when you are developing what type of style of coach you want to be, what your philosophies are going to be, and essentially what you want to be known as a head coach, just can you walk me through what that process is like and coming to stylistically the type of person you want to be as a head coach when building a program for the first time?
Winning, right? I want to be known as a guy that wins, and I hope that I'm a guy that's known as not the same coach today as I was yesterday. I hope I continue to grow. We always ask our players to improve, to get better, and that's the same challenge that I have for myself. I hope I play to our team's strengths. I hope that I make sure I let the players win it on the field and have success out there on the field. But I hope again that I'm not the same coach, 10 years from now that I am today. So if I continue to get better and our team continues to improve, then I think we'll have the best result possible on the field.
Our next question comes from Zach Neal.
Morning, Dan. Zachary Neal, USA Today. Coach Day remarked that both of these teams are far different than they were when you guys played in October. One player you didn't have then was Jordan Burch, one of your best defensive players. What does he bring to your defensive front, and kind of what does his presence mean on the team this time around?
Yeah, I think just his size and athleticism. God doesn't make a lot of people that look like Jordan Burch. I think when people see him, they're always surprised to hear that he's almost 300 pounds. Because he looks really good. At his size, but he plays like a beast on the field. Relentless effort, and the fact that we have great depth and several guys that can play edge positions for us, that allows us to make sure that when he's on the field, he's fresh. And a fresh Jordan Burch is really dangerous.
Our next question comes from James Crepia.
Dan, how much clarity have you been able to get in the week since this junior college injunction and the impact that could have on Kobe, Jamari, and George in the short term, and I suppose Sione in the long term could go from being a redshirt junior to a redshirt freshman theoretically?
I haven't put a lot of focus on it right now. I think there's time for that. I don't know that it'll be as easy as maybe people read into, but again, that really hasn't been my focus right now, and I don't think it's really been those players' focus either. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. If there's an ability to create that or not, we'll see.
Our next question comes from Rob Aller.
Hey, Dan, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch. Teams don't play each other in the same season very often in college football. I think you did with Washington last year. Is the attitude, philosophy, just stick with what worked before when you're going into the second one? Is there a tendency to think you have to put wrinkles in there, overthink things, or it says it worked before, it'll work again? How does that play out in those coaching meetings?
You said you were from Columbus?
Yes.
So you want our game plan is kind of what you're saying? We're going to do the same thing again?
Yeah, they're paying me pretty well.
Yeah, we're going to do the exact same thing, right? Every play, first call. No, you look at what worked, you look at what didn't work, you look at how your team's changed, and you try to play again to your strengths. You look at how your opponent's team's changed. So there's going to be some differences in this game from the last game for sure.
Our next question comes from AP Stedham.
Hey, Coach, this is AP Stedham from AP As We See It. Coach, what distinguishes Will Howard as a quarterback, and what have you seen since the time you played him in October?
Well, I think he has good size, obviously, and he's a big body. It's hard to get down. More than that, I think he's built a lot of confidence in the guys that he's able to throw the ball to, and even some confidence in the quarterback run game. I think you see him utilized a little bit more in the QB run game later in the season. But he does a good job of throwing good balls. He certainly threw a lot of good balls the other night, down the field, and was able to target those wideouts for explosive plays down the field. So he's playing really good football right now. Certainly played really good football against Tennessee.
Our next question comes from Jordan Mendoza.
Hey, Coach, Jordan Mendoza with USA Today Sports. Obviously, you guys have played this team before, but it's going to have been almost 3 months since the last time you see them. Just looking at Ohio State and what they've been able to do since then, how has Ohio State changed, and how does that kind of change your approach from how you approached it from the first matchup to how you're going to approach it now?
I won't really get into the differences, but they're a really good team. I don't know if there's a more talented team in the nation. Obviously, they've got great weapons outside at wideout and across the board. Their tight end's a big target. The running backs are elite. I think they've settled in with their offensive line, and that's really shown up. And then defensively, they play with relentless effort. They've got talent across the board at really every position. Schematically, they pitch a lot of different things to you on both sides of the ball that stress you. The ability to play with tempo at times in offense and then slow it down and come out of a huddle. The shifts in motions, all those things show up. And then defensively, they kind of keep their foot on the gas, whether it's a pressure mentality at times and then coverage mentality at times. It seems like they're in the right call a lot of the time. So they do a good job on both sides of the ball with their coordinators, and their players do a good job of executing.
Our next question comes from Matt Prem.
Yeah, Dan, you talk about this team always improving every single week and towards the end of the year playing your best ball. How close do you feel like you are to that target rate? And I guess just what's different from this year's team or this team this week from the first meeting of improvement?
Well, I think our best game just overall that we've played is probably our Washington game, just in all three phases. I think we've gotten better at different things with each group and each side of the ball throughout the season. But I think at moments we've certainly showed our ability to play a really good football. I think you probably argue that Ohio State's best game was the game that they just played. So, it's important at this point in the year that you're playing really good football. And sometimes you don't know that until you step on the field. And that's your job as a coach to get you ready for those moments, get our players ready for those moments. But certainly hope that we put our best foot forward when we play in this Rose Bowl.
Our next question comes from Patrick Murphy.
Hey, Dan, similar to some of the questions you've been asked about the sort of rematch, but when you're preparing for a game like this, do you look back much at that first game? Do you look more at what Ohio State's done since then and how you change things? What do you kind of focus on as you prepare?
Well, you got the time to do it, so you look at all of it, right? You look at the history of the team, you look at the history of the coordinators. This kind of is unique where it gives you a little bit more time to evaluate big picture. just coordinator philosophies, and then also, the original matchup, what that looks like, and then what they've done since. So I don't think you necessarily focus on one of those things. I think you focus on all that.
Our next question comes from Kyle Golick.
Dan, Kyle Golick, Mike Farrell, Sports College Football Dogs. Dylan in the first matchup was able to make some plays with his legs, especially on that touchdown there. Ohio State saw a similar quarterback with Ayama Liava at Tennessee, was really able to limit his ability to shift the pocket and make plays with his legs. How important is it for Dylan to be mobile against this athletic Buckeye defense and athletic front seven?
Yeah, I think it's important for Dylan to be able to take what's there, right? In a time that's going to be times that he's going to make those plays with his legs if they're in coverage. And at times that means he's going to have to be able to throw the ball. But Dylan's proven that throughout the year that he can do both.
Our next question comes from James Watkins.
Hey, Dan. James Watkins, Cleveland.com. I'm just curious, this game came down to literally the last second the first time. So how do you, with everything that's going on in late game, keep track of timeouts, situations, everything that comes with a late close game?
Yeah, one, you hope that you have your timeouts there. You hope that you're able to utilize them. And then we have a plan, when we want to call that third timeout, when we want to call the second timeout, when we call the last timeout. So for us, that's kind of something we do consistently throughout the season, throughout practice, creating those situations in practice, and evaluating, there's an ideal time for us in each one of those situations, when to utilize the timeouts and when to utilize the ability to get out of bounds, or when to use the 2-minute warning. So we kind of have that played out in our minds, scripted in our minds, so everybody's on the same page of when we would like to use those.
Our next question comes from Zachary Neal.
Dan, you know well as anyone about how important that next man up mentality is. I'm curious how impressed you've been with what Ohio State's done on the offensive line this year after losing 2 of their key pieces up front.
Yeah, I think they've done a really good job. Obviously, they have good players, and they won several games last year with some of the guys in some of the positions that they're playing now. So I think having the ability to shuffle and put guys where you need to be able to put them, and then create that continuity, is really important, and they've been able to create that.
Our next question comes from Brianna Armenthus. Bree, can you unmute your microphone? Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Next question will come from Ralph Russo.
Hey, Dan. Congratulations. Listen, I know you want to bring the best players into Oregon, no matter how, whatever the mode, be it high school recruiting or transfers. But and you saw how that's done at Georgia. But when they're not in your backyard, how does it change the strategy when you don't have as many of those players within a 90-mile drive of campus? How does it change the strategy to get them?
Well, I don't know that the strategy necessarily changed. I think it's more about identifying the right people that are comfortable with going where the best fit might be and not the most convenient. And that's kind of something we consistently preach when we're evaluating talent that can come here and help us is, are you looking for the best opportunity, or are you looking for the easiest opportunity or the most convenient opportunity? And, in our program, we talk about sacrifice. Sometimes you sacrifice distance for the right place, the right fit, the right place where you're going to develop. And we've had a lot of success doing that.
Our next question comes from Joey Kaufman.
Hi, Dan. Joey Kaufman from the Columbus Dispatch. I guess in the past for January 1st bowl games, including the Rose Bowl, sometimes teams have gotten there like a week ahead of time. It seems to be maybe changing a little bit in the expanded playoff era. Ohio State's not getting there until closer to the game. Just as it required your travel schedule to change, how different is this week going to be versus past times you guys had like a January 1st bowl game?
Yeah, it's a little different. We'll get there earlier than we would normally get there for a game, just because of the requirements of the bowl. But ultimately, we would like to get there as close as we can to a normal game week. So we'll be probably similar mindset to those guys as far as getting as many practices in as we can here on campus, and then going there later in the week.
Our next question comes from Max Torres.
Hi, Coach. Good to see you. Max Torres, Scoop Duck on three. This team's been able to win a lot of different ways this season, whether it's shootouts, or blowouts, dogfights. Can you just speak to how valuable that is as you guys enter this playoff?
Yeah, I think it's been really important for us, for our team, to realize that we can win in a lot of different ways, and with that piece, knowing that if you're able to put all three phases together and you play your best football, you can have a lot of success. So, football games come in a lot of different ways, and being able to be a team that can win it in multiple different ways is important for us.
Our next question comes from Tim May.
There we go. That you unmute comes up kind of funny. Dan, Dylan Gabriel was on I'm from LettermanRow.com. Dylan Gabriel was on my Heisman ballot. But I wanted to ask you, when I watch him play, what stood out most is his cool under pressure, etc. Does that stand out to you too? And how would you express it as a head coach of what he kind of brings in the toughest situations?
Yeah, I think you said it right. I've been really impressed with Dylan's poise. It doesn't matter if there's just a couple seconds left on the clock or if it's 4th and 9. I feel like he treats those plays the same as 1st and 10 at the beginning of the game. So he's able to stay cool as the backside of the pillow in big moments, and it's certainly paid off for us.
We have time for 2 more questions. Our next question will come from Dan Hope.
Hey, Dan, obviously you guys won the first game, but it was a really close game that came down to the end. So what are the biggest things you look at from that first game against Ohio State that you guys need to do better the second time around?
Yeah, I think big moments and big games like this always come down to critical situations. I think we have to continue to make sure we can execute on 3rd down on both sides of the ball, have success in the red area, making sure that we turn those into touchdowns when we're in those moments offensively, and then eliminate touchdowns when we're in those moments defensively. And then special teams play, I think, is always really big in these games. Like you said, that last game came down to the very final seconds. So not taking anything for granted and making sure that every single play counts and the next play is the most important is really important for us.
Our final question will come from Andrew Gillis.
Hey Dan, you guys are 4-0 in one-score games this year, and 3 of those teams are still playing. What have you learned as a coach about coaching in those one-score games, coaching in games that are one-possession games that come right down to the wire?
A ton. It matters, right? The details matter in those moments, and very similar to what we were just talking about with Dylan. You got to have poise and composure in those moments, be able to visualize what success looks like in those moments, and hope that you've recreated those moments within practice, in situations throughout the season, so you can go execute.
Thank you, Coach Lanning. With that, we will conclude today's head coach teleconference. Coach Lanning, you're welcome to sign off. Thank you to both coaches for taking time out of their busy schedules to join us today. We'd also like to thank the media for joining us. A transcript and audio and video from today's call will be available on the CFP Media portal within the next hour or 2 at the most. Thank you so much and have a great day.